am Natalie Desser. This is MBA 601 with Ball State University's Leadership and Ethical Reasoning class. I'm here today doing an interview with Dick Greenwood. Dick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dick Greenwood. I'm Vice President and Director of Builder Marketing for Coldwell Banker Corporate. I handle the Midwest, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Indiana.
All right. And how long have you been with Coldwell Banker?
Just over 10 years, about 10 years, 4 months right now.
All right. When you started with Coldwell Banker, what position did you begin with them?
I started my current position.
Oh, okay.
It was a situation where they wanted a builder to run their builder program. It was sort of failing. It just wasn't running the way they wanted. So they figured it would be best if they recruited somebody with a lot of building experience to run it. And that's when I went to Coldwell Banker.
Okay. All right. And when you started at Coldwell Banker, do you feel like you performed your job differently when you started than you do now?
Oh, most definitely. The job has changed radically because we went through the worst depression really in the recent times, or at least since the Great Depression. The new construction went down 91% in the Chicagoland market. So it was just tremendous changes that had to be made to adapt and survive.
Mm-hmm.
But also from the very beginning, I had to do a lot of changes, not rapidly, but over the first year, just to revamp the department and get it running the way it should be, with the right people in that.
Okay. So when you say you had to make changes in the department, do you feel like the changes were more focused on changing the tasks at hand or more focused on changing how the people in the department performed?
It was 100% people. The task is always the same. Get sales.
Right.
It's a very narrow focus. How we do it changes rapidly and constantly, but the key thing is the people. And I'll give you an example. My predecessor would only pick certain people and say, now you're going to go work with this builder. Often there wasn't a good pairing of personalities, of beliefs, of vision. So one of the first things I did was, instead of assigning somebody to work with the builder, I would pick out 3 people that I think would be a great match for the builder. The builder had to interview the people.
Oh, okay.
They had to try to sell the builder why they should hire them versus somebody else. That way the builder thought he was making the decision who he wanted. Somebody wasn't just being forced on him. The people that were interviewing really wanted the job. And to this day, we have almost 0% turnover. And some of the first people I put in 10 years ago are still some of my very top performers.
Oh, that's wonderful. So in our class right now, we are studying how leadership affects task orientation or people orientation. So it sounds a lot like with your focus being on people orientation, that it is less about checking off a checklist and more about reacting to your environment and reacting to the customer and what they need.
That's it 100%. My view is the task can always be done by somebody clerical. I mean, we can have, and we do have a number of assistants that handle the paperwork. My best salespeople and my best people overall may be terrible at paperwork, but you hire them for their people skills, not their paperwork. Mm-hmm. And we can always hire somebody at a much lower rate wage to do the paperwork, to process the reports. And I want the people and the personality to be out there making the deals.
Yeah.
Not doing the tasks. And my whole career, I've never been one that really demanded the task. If it has to be done on Monday, if you can't do it, we'll find somebody else that can. And you just do what you do best. And that's work with the customers.
Now, do you think that the reason that you're more people-oriented is because of your education, or do you think it's an experience thing, or maybe a combination of that?
Well, it's probably a combination of that. My bachelor's and my master's were in business administration. I really started out in accounting. I lasted less than a day in accounting school because I hated it.
Yeah.
And I went into personnel management and got my bachelor's and master's in that. So it was more people-centered.
Yeah.
But then I went right into sales and marketing and construction, never run into personnel administration. But it was always that people thing. And And as you come up in that sales ranks and marketing ranks, and you look at all the great research done in sales and marketing, it's all people-centered. And how do you react to people? How do the people react to you? That's the key to success. It's not the number crunching. So I just say, do people, and it's always been successful.
So it's easy for us to say success is simply maximizing profits, get the sale. Is that the only way that your team would measure success, or are there other ways? Because obviously the sale can't always be the end of all.
No, it isn't. And we learned, especially during this last depression in the real estate market or new construction market especially, the sale isn't the end.
Right.
And when you work for a big corporation, a national corporation like Coldwell Banker, their image is very important to them. So it may not be that you can keep the numbers increasing every single year during a recession, but if you can keep their name up there in front, that you can keep their name to be recognized as the number one source. If the builder needs help in marketing or sales, if the builder has a question and needs help in any of those areas, even if they don't want to hire a Coldwell Banker, they know they can come to us and get clear, straight answers. And we look at it as, well, maybe 5 years from now, we'll get that job. In the meantime, we provided a service. We didn't make a penny.
Right.
But it's PR and it's goodwill. And so we look at the long range. We really look at what's good 5 or 10 or 15 years down the line, where very few companies look at it that way.
Absolutely.
But they do look at it that way. And my boss tells me all the time, do what's right. If you don't feel comfortable with the builder, don't take the job. And there's never any second guessing. It's just, so it's a different ethical standard than you normally get with most companies. Most companies, you have a bottom line and you're accountable to stockholders, and we do have that. But it's not the driving force with our Chicagoland division, at least.
Yeah. Do you think that type of ethical reasoning has impacted morale? Because I know that, when everything's struggling and you're going through a particular depressed period, team morale has got to be a big challenge, and I'm sure a frustrating challenge.
Yeah, well, the morale is key. But if you hire the right people and keep the right people, that generally takes care of itself. And the example that comes right to my mind is my boss, since day one, there's been a woman who's just a great people person, and she understands and reads people good. She has very little or no turnover. So during the recession, when I went down from 3 assistants working directly doing the paperwork and that under me, down to 1 part-time, the people would work extra hours, even though they're not getting paid, but they don't complain or gripe. And we saw everybody trying to do 2 or 3 jobs, and we knew it, but they didn't ask for more. They didn't say, hey, my 40 hours are up. Well, we got to get this done. They just get it done. So that type of morale is so important. And that comes from within, from proper hiring right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just don't survive. And if you get a lot of turnover, it destroys your profit, destroys everything, because you're spending too much time retraining and not working towards the goals of the company.
Absolutely. I have experienced that before. I can agree from what little that I've seen. But what do you think? We talk a lot about motivation in academia. We're talking about how you motivate your employees. What do you think motivates those employees to work essentially for free because they are feeling some kind of accomplishment? What is it that they're hoping to get out of that, even if it's something small?
I think motivation in our situation, and most times with salespeople, is all internal. It can't be money. Money doesn't motivate the salespeople. It can't be the benefits. Everybody gives some type of insurance, and that. So it has to be within. You want to do a good job. That's your nature. That's it. And that's what we try to find when we hire the right people and match them up with the builders. They have that internal drive or motivation. The companies don't have time nowadays to try to motivate them. And I've never seen programs designed to motivate that really work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to come from within. And if you don't have that you want to be the best in your field, and you want to have an enjoyable life where you can make enough money and do other stuff, it's got to come from within. There's no external way to do it. And if we can find that type of person, and we've been very successful doing that, we keep them forever, and they're happy. They don't leave us, it really works out good for the company.
Okay.
But it's all internal motivation. I firmly believe in that.
Yeah, so you're definitely a nature versus nurture sort of type of situation.
I mean, we do a little nurturing of new employees, but just get them comfortable in the beginning, because it's always a new assignment, a new job. There's some questions, but after a few month period, there should be their own internal motivation kicking in, taking over. And if we don't see that, we know it's not going to be a match long for the company.
Yeah. Okay, well, shift gears a little bit here toward technology and how technology has affected leadership in any organization. Obviously, in the last few years, in the last 10 years, we've seen a major change in the way business is done. That now, it's in your hands most of the time. How do you think that has changed how leaders and their teams interact and how they get business done?
Well, it's been very positive in our industry. It's actually allowed them to be more people-person-centered rather than job-centered. Just take an iPad, for instance. We all use them out in the field, and even when we're running the jobs and that, everything's done on iPad. So we give out the orders, we modify the schedule, and it just takes seconds. And we notify a subcontractor, you got to come in 3 weeks. Well, before it was on the phone at night. Everything's done by that. We even pay them through the iPad. We do everything in the field. So the guy's out in the field talking to the builder, working with the builder, and makes those decisions in a matter of seconds, and that frees them up just to be talking to the sub, talking to the builder, and being more one-on-one from a person point of view. Before, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we go in the field early in the morning, come back and sit behind a desk for 6 or 8 hours every day doing paperwork, then go out the next morning at 6 in the morning, meet the subs, meet the builder, 8:30, 9 back in the office till 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night. Those things are over. We can actually, because of technology, be more productive selling and working with the builder than we ever could have been without it.
Yeah.
And it's really been a tremendous plus, because it's made everybody's life simpler. The backup people that we need are getting smaller and smaller. We went from over 700 accountants down to 45. We totally automated the accounting system. We're going 100% paperless this month, company-wide.
Yeah.
We're getting rid of over 600 file cabinets. We're moving our corporate office in a week and a half. No file cabinets.
Wow.
Totally paperless. Technology is just wonderful, and if you embrace it, it really does make working so much easier.
Sure. I can imagine that might be the biggest hurdle, though, is getting everybody on board.
It's been a 2-year process, and but it's been successful. The people that were reluctant at first are seeing that this is really easier now.
Okay.
And everybody has 2 or 3 monitors. So we don't even have to print a piece of paper to look while you're filling out another piece of paper. It's just on one screen, going to the next screen. It works beautifully.
Now I'm curious, when they implemented that change, was it the type of change that was implemented by saying, this is what we're going to do, or was it the type of change that was implemented with some input from the team?
It was there was some input. I think corporate and deep down wanted to do something like that. So they pick out 4 or 5 people from every area in the company to do a focus group, and then they create a team that creates ideas. Then they brought in consultants.
Okay.
And then about a year ago, they started implementing some changes on a small scale in a couple of departments, monitored it. Then we tried some stuff in St. Louis, Miami, New York, and then it eventually went throughout the whole company throughout the United States.
Okay.
So there was input from the rank and file to begin with. And there was also special training for some of the people that have been with the company for 40 years that always done it one way.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's pretty traumatic when you try to change it. But they're all on board. There's no problem at all.
Great.
Yeah.
Especially for such a large organization. That's a pretty big feat to undertake. And undertake successfully. So
we have 36,000 employees in the United States, so it is a major feat to get done.
Just personally, how did you feel about it when it was first presented?
I had no problem with it whatsoever because I'm not. I don't enjoy doing a lot of paperwork anyway, and I always had fun out in the field with my iPad, and since day one I always had a laptop. I never had a desktop computer, so I always had it out in the field, and I would email the stuff to my assistant back at the office, and pretty much they take care of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had 3 file cabinets in my office, and I think 2 drawers are totally empty. And one were like copies of expense accounts and real important contracts, but I never was real big on the paperwork anyway.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame you there. One last question here about mentoring. Was there somebody throughout your career, because I know your career was not only Coldwell Banker, obviously. Yeah. You had times where you were running your own business as well. Was there a particular influence that changed how you did business or worked with others? Was there a person or even a part of your education maybe, or even some of I know you've done a lot of adventures that maybe influenced how you approach your challenges?
I think all those are part of it. In the very beginning, my first job in college, my senior year in college, I started working for a construction company, fresh off the street, no real experience whatsoever. The owner of the company, Dick Brown, said, "You're going to work under my top superintendent for the first 6 months, just tailing them. That's all you do. Just walk with them, do everything, listen to them, and do everything." And Dick Brown was a great leader, and everybody in the office had to go out onto the job sites and work for 3 or 4 days every year, so that they swept out buildings, they carried lumber. This is even a secretary, but they understood what the customer needed, what the field people, their problems were, and there was so much cooperation then between one department and the other department. They understood when a superintendent was late on his paperwork because there could have been problems out on the job site, and it worked together. And I've always remembered that since day one. So in my career, I always had somebody young coming up underneath me that we always tried to mentor. For 29 years, I've run construction companies along with myself, and I never was disappointed when somebody said, "Hey, I can leave and go." As long as they're moving to a better job, I always thought, man, I did my job right. I trained them right. They're successful. They can move on. Yeah. Because I might not have had an opening for them to advance anymore. And I think that mentoring is really important and giving back. As you can see in the library here, I got over 3,000 books on construction and sales. I religiously get 53 journals a month in the construction and sales and marketing area that I scan, I read, I clip the important articles, and I pass it on to the people under me. I teach for the Home Builders Association. I've always belonged, firm believer in the education and the mentoring process. Last week I was in Vegas for the National Builders Convention. I'm on a major task force called Next Generation. How do we entice the young kids coming out of college to come into the construction field? Yeah. And the big thing is creating these mentoring programs so that they're comfortable coming in, knowing somebody's going to give them the break they need, answer their questions, and nurture them along the way. So I think that's critical, and I think every top successful executive somewhere had a great mentor. Yeah, absolutely. Nobody just got to the top on their own. Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time and your insight, and
if I have any more questions, is it okay to contact you more?
Anytime.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.